Anybody here from out of town? No, sorry, they do that all the time. So thanks for the opportunity. So for those of you who don't know, Zinwave is a NADAS OEM. We're headquartered in Dallas, Texas. We've been around for a while. You can see we have our research, development, and engineering still in the UK, which is where we were founded. And we've got a significant presence. We've got 5 continents. We've got customers in 26 countries. It's been a good ride. But we want to talk about some things that are changing. So if you can take a look, what you realize is that business models can significantly change business. If you look at the logos that we've got up here, none of these people are doing anything new. So Uber and Lyft didn't invent the paid transportation market. They just made a tweak to it that made a significant difference. The same thing happens with lodging when you look at Airbnb and Vrbo. And then the same kind of thing in commercial real estate when you look at the way that WeWork and Regus are attacking the for rent, the short-term rental space. So just a slight tweak to a business model can make a huge impact. Real estate and technology have an interesting relationship. So real estate has been really quick to try to adopt things that increase their efficiency, because what you want to do is kind of have as big a delta as you can between the revenue that you bring in and the cost that goes out the door. So there's been a real move to take advantage of things that make you more efficient. So lead construction in the buildings, making the buildings better from an energy perspective, and then managing that energy inside the building with the building automation systems, higher grade HVAC programs. The other thing that you're quick to do is to adopt marketing tools, again, to drive that revenue into the building. So, the ability to take advantage of social media as a way to position your venue, the ability to use 360 fly-throughs to position things for the tenants, the ability to use VR so that they can actually see what the space is going to look like before they actually move in. Those are all things that have been very, very helpful in trying to drive more revenue into the building. But it's been a little bit slower to change when you look at the business models. It was great to hear Salim up here talking in the panel before with Rich about how they are changing their business model, and they're starting to become more of a service provider to their tenants as opposed to just a shell provider. But the overwhelming building shell and utilities is the prevailing model where the tenant is responsible for the communications inside the leased space. What we want to do is kind of ask you to kind of relook at wireless as a service and how you can provide that to your tenants and the advantages of doing that. So Ian Gillett at IGR is in the process of finishing up a new survey that they've just done. And in that U.S. Building Manager and Owner survey that's getting ready to come out, what they identified was in talking to the building owners and managers is that 94% of those respondents of Class A and Class B building space managers said that excellent cellular voice coverage inside their buildings would lead to higher lease rates. And when you say lease rates, rent. Not necessarily the occupancy rates, but the actual rent that they pay. And the benefit that you can provide to your tenant by doing that, by offering that cellular voice coverage throughout the building and offering it as a service to them, is that you provide them with better mobility. So that once they leave their individual pool, their tenant space that they long, and they go to the elevator or they go to the garage, go into the areas that you cover, they can continue the conversations they initiated inside their space, or they can take a conversation that they initiated outside their space into the space that they now lease from you. Better security. The LTE protocols are inherently more secure than the Wi-Fi things that are out there, because most Wi-Fi is either over the shelf or it's homegrown, whereas the LTE protocols come out of the 3GPP. And it provides them with a better overall user experience. So there are some good things that you can do for your tenants as a part of that. Now, when you look at it, we understand that offering this service is not pretty straightforward. And so there are some things that are changing. But one of the biggest changes coming is, you've heard this now for 3 years, is that carriers are abandoning the fully funded in-building model where they'll come in and pay to put their DAS, their services into your building. So what they are doing now is they're shifting that responsibility to, if you want 4G, if you want 5G inside the building, it's up to you to provide that. We'll help you, but it's going to be on you to do that. So there are a couple different options if you're a building owner or manager that wants to put 4G, 5G services inside your building.
The easiest way is just to purchase outright option. So you go out and you buy this, you get your estimates, you choose the bidder, you choose the vendor, and you make the installation, and you own that network. But there are other options that are out there that are growing in popularity. There's a lease rate option now that's out there that you can still own the network, but you pay for it over time as opposed to having one big check up front. And then there's a conventional third-party lease models or cellular as a service models that you could get from a lot of the folks that are here today, Halo, Extenet, so all of the different third-party vendors. So those are out there where you provide the service inside the building, but you don't necessarily own the network. Looking at those as options, and now looking at the idea of leasing where you still own the system or purchasing outright, this is an option that's based on a building that we worked on recently. And so this is for basically about a 400,000 square foot building. And if you were to purchase it outright, you would pay about $400,000. That's that buck a square foot that you've historically heard as a benchmark for providing DAS inside a building. But if you move to a conventional lease and you put down just a little bit of money, this was a proposal that we received from one of our partners that said that they would be able to do this, and it takes it from that huge outlay down to an $8,000 a month outlay over 48 months. So there are some really good ways of looking at this. There's also a way that you can develop an ROI. So historically, I think that the expectation is that if I spend this money on DAS, that's a sunk cost. It is something I have to do. And it's kind of like hot water and fresh towels at a hotel in that it's an expectation that that service is going to be there. You don't really get points for having it. You only get dinged if it's not there. But what we want to do is kind of explain that there is a way that you can make money off of the in-building system that you install. So developing ROI, you have to look at all the factors that would go into it. So it's the cost of the system, not only the cost of the system itself, but the cost of the monitoring and maintenance associated with it. You have to look at your property size, what your occupancy rate is, what you anticipate your occupancy rate will become, and then your ability to upcharge. Because if you're going to put this thing in, you've got to raise your revenue that's associated with it. But whether you can charge all your tenants for that with a one-time assessment, or whether you're only going to charge your new tenants and what percentage that looks like, and then any other revenues that you're getting from the carriers because you're offering them some services. So this is a spreadsheet that we tracked down. And this is an imaginary building in New York City, and we came up with some imaginary costs that were as creative as we could. So a 300,000 square foot building, and we assumed not $1 a square foot, but $3 a square foot, just a really crazy kind of installation number. So if you look at it, again, these are sort of make-up things here, but we're looking at an occupancy rate of 93%, moving to 95%, and we're only talking about increasing the rental cost for the property a dime a square foot. And that dime a square foot over the cost of the system, we'll see here in just a second. But we're also saying that you've got retail tenants that you can offer an increase to them for having the additional service, and then whatever small cell revenues that you might be getting from the operator, and that rolls through down until you can take a look at it. You factor out your operating costs, and what we see is that even with this outlandish kind of expectation on the installation price, that you could actually develop an ROI, assuming you could charge everybody in the building in a little over 2 years. So we just really want to try to position this now is that a DAS is not a sunk cost. It can actually convert into an opportunity for you. And that rolls into the Zinwave value proposition. So we are a fiber-based DAS OEM with a full spectrum. We support everything from 150 megahertz to 2.7 gigs. So we can help you with 4G, with 5G. We can help you with CBRS. We can help you with all of the different solutions and services that are coming out and help you get that into your building on a single layer so that it becomes a lot more economical, which drives to that other thing of lowering the cost of doing business. And that is what we want to talk about today. ROI, making money. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Here we go. There you go.
Yeah, but it,
Is it on? Could you bring that up a bit, Alex? Try again.
Mic one, all right. Yeah, I've been in wireless for quite some time now. One of the things that you should also factor in terms of those models is when a building owner buys the DAS, they pay for the equipment, they do the install and everything, they're able to capitalize that. And that adds to the bottom line at the back end of their year. where if they were to lease it, it might look pretty to the finance guys, but that becomes an operational cost that subtracts from the bottom line.
True, yeah. So and a lot depends on your building goals and objectives for that particular property. So yeah, it's a factor of looking at what financial decision makes the most sense for you. That's an excellent point. Thank you. Anyone else?
One back down here. Okay. Whoop. Sorry about that. All right. There you are.
So at Zinwave, do you typically sell directly to the building owner, or do you deal with third-party service organizations who in turn sell to the building owner?
We try to be as user-friendly as possible. We like to develop a direct customer so that we can understand exactly what their requirements are, and then we'll try to fulfill in the manner that is the shortest path to get in there for them. So if we need to bring in a third party, we absolutely will. But yeah, it's easier if you can keep as many layers out as you can.
All right, we'll do one more here and then we'll wrap things up.
Hi, Alan. My name is Sheikh Rahman, and I actually am very familiar with Zinwave. I have designed some system like Holocaust Museum in DC and a few others, and I
Excellent,
wanted
thank you.
PowerWave at some point, so that's how I know Slavko and figured that he's not here. My question to you is that 5G-wise, what you're doing, and the other thing is this is a broadband system, meaning spectrum, the full spectrum. So the filtration and everything between CBRS and all the technologies that's coming up and everything, is that quite figured out, and are you comfortable in that? If so, are more people willing to accept that too? And what's
Okay,
the
so
situation?
two parts. The first part was, so the second part was handling the services between CBRS and the 5G, and then what was the path to 5G? This is first part. Okay, so first part, path to 5G. Like everybody else, we were working on that. We see 5G is going to be a combination of what we call low band, which is what we support today, 150 to 2.7 gig, mid band, which we think is 3.5 and go to about 4.5, maybe 4.2, and then millimeter wave. So how do you support? We're working on a solution today that will add a remote to us. So right now we've got a single remote that supports the 150 to 2.7. We're looking at a mid-band remote that'll support 3.5 to 4.2, which would be co-located. So for us, the way that we tell you to prepare for 5G is to put some extra fibers in the horizontal. So we're recommending right now that you put a minimum of 6 fibers in the horizontal, be able to support that additional growth. And the reason we say 6 as opposed to just 4 is because millimeter wave. We don't think that millimeter wave will be a traditional DAS kind of application. We think it'll be more of a distributed radio approach. And so you'll have a kiosk kind of service out there so that you'll put it out there. Andy said earlier that millimeter wave and as a way of distributing 5G is a very expensive proposition. We agree with that. And so you're going to minimize those radios. So what we'll do at the edge of the network, but then we'll backhaul using that fiber, that extra fiber that you put in there. So that's kind of the general sense of where we're going. Low band, mid band, millimeter wave support integrated over a single platform. As far as the cooperation of the services, we haven't done a tremendous CBRS right now. We're in the process of doing that, but historically we haven't had an issue with the filtering of competition between the services. It's been more in the presence of higher power things, so like public safety, when you've got a 5-watt radio that keys up underneath one of your systems. Those things can be problematic for us. But historically, because of the isolation that we get between our units, we've not seen significant issues with interference, but we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. Thanks.
Fantastic. Everyone, Alan Dixon.